How many times have you felt that something was about to go wrong, but ignored the signs? Like an inner voice saying, "Be careful," but you went ahead and later realized you should have listened? Life is full of warnings, signals that many choose to ignore. But what if I told you that God has been trying to speak to you all along? That He has already given you signs, answers, and warnings, but you may not have noticed? This video could be the wake-up call that changes everything. The truth is, God doesn't warn us for no reason. He doesn't speak into the wind. Every warning He gives is an attempt to prevent your downfall, to save you from something you can't even see coming. And do you know what's worse? Many people only realize this when it's already too late. But you don't have to learn the hard way. Today, you have the chance to hear and understand what God is trying to tell you. And trust me, this message could change the course of your life. So before you go on with your routine, stop and think. What if this is the last chance God is giving you to see something you've been ignoring? Is it worth the risk? Watch until the end, because the words you are about to hear aren't just another video. They could be the key to transforming your life before it's too late. There are moments in life when everything feels like chaos. People search for answers but find only silence. The heart cries out for direction, but the world offers nothing but distractions. In the midst of this storm, there is a powerful message hidden in the scriptures, a warning from God that can change destinies. This warning is not meant to condemn, but to save. Like a father who sees his child walking toward danger, God speaks clearly, calling each one away from destruction and into the abundant life He has promised. But how many actually stop to listen? How many times has God tried to warn, yet pride, hurry, or disbelief made His words go unnoticed? That's exactly what happened in Noah's time. He built an ark while people laughed, living as if nothing would ever happen. But when the rain came, it was already too late. God doesn't want anyone to be caught off guard. He warns before the storm, before the fall, before the pain. But what happens to those who ignore Him? What happens when God's warning is left unheard? This isn't just a religious matter. It's a matter of life and death. Jesus Himself said in Matthew 7 verses 24 to 27 that whoever hears His words and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. When the storms came, his house stood firm. But those who ignored His words saw everything collapse. The real question is, are you building your life on the rock or on the sand? Are you listening to the warning or following the crowd? Just like in the days of Noah? Because the choice you make now will determine your future. God, in His infinite wisdom, has never forced anyone to follow Him. He offers the path of life, but leaves the choice in our hands. Since the Garden of Eden, when He gave Adam and Eve the freedom to obey or not, humanity has stood between two doors, obedience and rebellion. And just like in Eden, every choice brings a consequence. It's not about punishment, it's about harvest. Those who sow the wind will reap the storm. And how many lives have already been shipwrecked because they ignored God's warnings? The truth is, sin always disguises itself as immediate pleasure, but hides its claws until it's too late. Take Samson, for example. He had the strength of an army, but fell because he played with danger, ignoring God's warnings. One step off the path, one small detour, and the fall becomes inevitable. That's why keeping faith firm isn't an option, it's a necessity. You can't play with what robs you of God's presence. Those who heed his warnings avoid scars that could have been unnecessary. But let's be honest, staying firm in faith in the chaos of this world isn't easy. The enemy works in silence, diverting hearts, weakening convictions. It's like Peter, who walked on water until he took his eyes off Jesus and looked at the wind. A strong faith is what keeps us from drowning spiritually. And that strength only comes when we choose to listen to God's voice, above distractions, above doubts. The question is, are we truly listening or just going with the flow, hoping that tomorrow will be enough? Because the truth is, not all tomorrows come. Listening to God's warnings is not about fear, it's about love. Think of a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. It's not there to scare sailors, but to guide them safely. God does the same with us. He warns us because he wants to save us from destruction. But how often do people ignore these signs, believing they can follow their own paths without consequences? The truth is, every choice has an impact. And when we ignore God's warnings, sooner or later, we reap the consequences. Look at King Saul. Chosen by God to reign, he had everything to become a great leader, but he chose to ignore the Lord's warnings. He followed his own will instead of God's direction. The result? He lost his throne, his protection, and, in the end, his own life. How many people today live like Saul? They start well, but because of pride or disobedience, they drift away from God's plans and end up losing everything. The greatest danger is not just making mistakes. It's insisting on them when God has already sent countless warnings to change course. The challenge now is in front of you. Will you keep ignoring the signs, or will you choose to obey? God never warns without purpose. Every warning from him is an act of love, a way to prevent unnecessary falls. The question is, how long can someone keep delaying the decision to follow God's will? Because one thing is certain, time doesn't wait. Those who listen and obey find peace and direction. Those who ignore him risk ending up where they never wanted to be. Now, the decision is in your hands. How many times has God tried to speak to you, but the noise of the world drowned out his voice? Ignoring divine warnings may seem insignificant at the moment, but sooner or later, the consequences come. The question is, will you wait for the worst to happen, or will you listen before it's too late? God doesn't want to see you stumble. He is reaching out to you now, showing the way, but it's up to you to decide whether to follow him or keep walking in the dark. If this video spoke to you, if it touched your heart in any way, don't keep this message to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you want to keep receiving messages that build, transform, and bring direction to your life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss the next teachings that might be the answer you've been searching for. May God bless your life and strengthen your journey. May he open your eyes to see what needs to change and give you the strength to follow the right path. Thank you for watching until the end. Now, the choice is before you. What will you do with this message?